In the NFL draft, you make a plan and then the league shatters it. So let's make a plan. Let's make a backup plan, a contingency plan, an emergency plan, all for the Green Bay Packers today on Locked On Packers.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. This episode brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. In the draft, there is a certain way you're going to want this all to play out. If you're the Packers, you have a feeling in your head, hey, these are the players, first, second, third round that we really like, that we like extra. And so you hope you have the opportunity to get them. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. That's the beauty of the draft and the pain of the draft. And if you're a fan and there's someone you really want the Packers to draft, and they're on the board when the Packers are drafting, and the Packers don't draft that player, you freak out a little bit, right? Have the Packers ever taken the guy you really, really wanted them to take when they were on the board? Like, I think the one time I can think of recently where everyone was like, this would be a great Packer is Josh Jackson. They didn't take him in the first round. They took him in the second round, and it turns out he could not play at all. Unfortunately, I was a huge Josh Jackson fan. Like, one of the most wrong I've been on a prospect ever is that guy. So I want to fold in the discussions that we've had over the last 2 days into this one. The need, the pass rushers, the value over the life of the rookie contract, what players, what positions maximally improve your team. If you're going to lay out some plans on how you can do that, you need to know where the draft is strong, where it's weak, and then what your options are going to be. I assume some of you do this with fantasy. You go, okay, if I take a running back in the first round, then I need to take my receivers here. This is where I think the draft is weak here, strong here. It's why for so long, the idea was you have to take your running backs in fantasy in the first round because you were just going to run out of the good ones faster. And there are some people who still believe that because there's so many receivers now who week to week can give you high level production. So when you go into the draft, you have to know what your opportunity cost is. If I draft this player, what am I giving up in terms of opportunity down the line? Where is the draft strongest? If I don't take a defensive tackle that I like here, is there going to be one later that gives me the traits that I want? And in the case of defensive tackle, to me, the answer is no. I looked more at the class. I watched the day 2 guys, and I have come to the conclusion that if the Packers don't get one of the top 5 or 6 players, Harmon, Graham, Nolan, Grant, Sanders, Ty Williams, I think you can add in there. If they don't get one of those guys in the first 2 rounds, I think they're just going to wait. And in the case of someone like Tyleik Williams, who's really just a run-stuffing player, but I think has some pass rush upside, he's such a good run defender. And because he's such a dominant run defender, I think you see the power in his upper body. There's some pass rush untapped upside there that if he's there in the 50s when you have a chance to draft, you can justify that. But I think maybe only under certain circumstances. I think if you get a Donovan Ezraku in the first round, you can look at that in the second round. So how does the player you draft in the first round affect the way that you look at the rest of the draft from a if-then perspective, from a who impacts the draft the most? So if you get a defensive tackle pass rusher, one of, in all likelihood, Graham is going to be gone, Harmon, Nolan, Grant. If you get one of those guys in the first round, then what's next in terms of what impacts your team the most? I think you can make the case. After that, you're looking at receiver. That is the place where the snaps are going to be available. And if you get the right guy in the 50s, that can change your offense. A couple names. If Jaden Higgins is there, and I would consider moving up for him if Derek Harmon is there, I'm going to take Derek Harmon. I think that's where I am with that. I have him and Jaden Higgins really close together, but I can get a receiver that I like later. I can't get a guy like Derek Harmon later, I don't think. Now, the store brand of Derek Harmon is South Carolina's defensive tackle, TJ Sanders. And I think he's right in that range in the 50s. I think he's 50 on the consensus board for The Athletic. That's right where it makes sense to me. So if he's there in round 2, great. But if you take a Derek Harmon at 23, after that, there are going to be some players there, whether it's Jack Besh, who I really like from TCU, who's got some Puka Nacua in his game, got a little Jordy Nelson in his game. We haven't seen him run a 40, but elite 3-cone at 6'1", 214 was the player of the week at the Senior Bowl. He blocks his butt off. He is someone who I think makes a lot of sense for the Packers. Jalen Noel. I think it's Noel, actually. Jalen Noel. If he were 5'11 instead of 5'10, and I think he's 5'9 and change, we might be having a different conversation because I think he would be a no-doubt Packer with the speed, the explosiveness. In the second round, I can see that making some sense. Trey Harris, Jalen Royals. Also, it's a little early for me at 54, but I don't think it's like crazy early. I have those guys as sort of late second, early third round grades, and the Packers are picking in the late second. So you have a lot of options there in the second round if you go defensive tackle first. I don't know that you have as many pass rush options. And because you're getting the pass rusher first, now you have a position at receiver where you are maximizing the impact. So then what happens, right? Where are you maximizing your value? Who can you draft that will come in and maximize your value in the third round? And this is the problem, right? That who are you going to be able to get there that can come in and max? Like you're not going to get, if you want, let's say, left tackle insulation because you're going to move Jordan Morgan there and now you need a swing tackle. Is this the spot to do it? Ozzie Drapillo from Boston College, for example. Wyatt Millham from West Virginia. Some people think he's a guard. I think he probably is a guard. Is this the spot that makes sense? Tate Ratledge from Georgia. Guard. Is he a center? Could be the center of your future. I think offensive line could be in play here because the defensive tackle group here is just not like all of the guys after I mentioned that top group. They're either pluggers, in which case you can wait until day 3, or they're small and they're more like little pass rush types. And in the case of someone like Jordan Phillips, just not athletic enough, generally speaking, for Green Bay. Now, you could sneak a linebacker in here, someone like Chris Paul Jr. from Ole Miss, Barrett Carter from Clemson, Ismail Madden Jr. from Georgia. They did take 2 day 2 linebackers last year, though. What are you going to do with Quay Walker? We don't have an answer for that right now. Now, someone like Darian Porter, the corner. Now, I think that's interesting. A developmental player. You don't need him to come in right now, day 1. Elite athleticism. Was a former receiver, so hasn't played a lot. But you don't need him necessarily to play a lot. You signed Nate Hobbs to give you some insulation there. And I think that's pretty valuable for this team given where they are right now. Jacob Parrish is a little bit undersized, but tested incredibly well. He would fit into that Jair Alexander. We're going to overlook that he's a little small for us, and he's a little small, but he's thick in the 190s and was a former track champion, jumped out of the gym, ran really fast. Another option is another name that I mentioned a couple different times, Femi Oladejo from UCLA. Not purely a pass rusher, and from this standpoint, I think makes sense from that, okay, you're getting the maximum value because he's an early down Sam linebacker. UCLA played off the ball, and then they moved him to be a pass rusher. Well, can he be that Sam linebacker near the line of scrimmage on early downs in base defense, and then on second and third and long be a designated pass rusher? Ryan Goodikins said he didn't want a designated pass rusher. That's not really what Femi Oladejo is because he can play actual linebacker, has the movement skills to be an actual, it's different than say Bryce Huff, who is just a pass rusher. Hassan Reddick, who really good pass rusher, but just a pass rusher, undersized. He plays the run better, at least traditionally played the run better than someone like Bryce Huff. I think that is something that could make a lot of sense for you. In the third round at any spot, you're going to start to go, what are we really looking at here? I like some of the edge options here. Jordan Birch from Oregon, Kyle Kennard from South Carolina. But again, you're getting maybe a little redundant if we're trying to, this is just the let's maximize value based on who you're taking. The Packers have been known to double up. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they took another defensive tackle here. I just don't know who it would be. Or another pass rusher here. Now you're getting a defensive end, Josiah Stewart in the third round from Michigan, Jordan Birch from Oregon, Kyle Kennard from South Carolina, Jared Ivey from Ole Miss. Those are guys who make sense. So a draft like, this is just a for instance, Derek Harmon at 23. In the second round, you get, let's call it, just for fun, let's call it Jack Besh. And then in the third round, I think that I would want to go to a different position, someone like Darian Porter from Iowa State. Premium position in the top 100. That sounds pretty good to me. Okay, what happens if your good defensive tackle options are off the board? Well, let's talk about that next on Locked On Packers. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, you'll get multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps you find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork, UPWORK. Let me make sure I spell it right. Upwork. It's two easy words. I should be able to do it. Maybe I can find a freelancer who can help me read. Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. So what happens if you're sitting there at 23 and someone like Mykel Williams is there? If it's me, Okay, I'm just going to take him. But let's set aside the Michael Williams of it all. Let's say Donovan Ezeraku or Mike Green is the highest graded player on their board. Then what do? So we previewed this a little bit at the top. If you can get your pass rusher, and it's an edge rusher at the top of the draft, I think you just wait. Because a lot of the kinds of players that you're going to get on day 2, Darius Alexander from Toledo, who's going to be 25 in August, Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee, 6'2", and in fact, he's 6'1" and 7/10, under 6'2", 291. That would be very, very, very light by Packer standards, like a full 10 pounds. Now, because he's 6'2", maybe the density works for them. Shamar Turner, who we haven't seen test. These are guys who are a little bit duplicative of what they have. These 3 techniques, who are penetrators, who are win with quickness kind of guys. Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks. Presumably one of those guys is going to stick around. So then I think if you can get a Michael Williams or a Donovan Ezeraku in the first, I think Mike Green's going to be a little too small. And the Ezeraku connection to me works with Jeff Hafley. You have to just wait, I think, until day 3 for defensive tackles. Now, if the right guy is there, like if TJ Sanders is there at 54, I would understand it. Like I would understand saying we need to goose the pass rush. So just go for it. Now, I think you're looking at a similar situation where you get your pass rusher at the top and then you're looking at these receivers. That's how I would look at it. Now, it's going to depend on where the board falls. There are a lot of these corners in this second round range that I really like. There's very mixed opinions on all of them. Some of them think, like, I'm gonna name 3 players here that could all be first round picks or they could be the Packers' second round pick. It's hard to gauge their value. A.Z. Thomas from Florida State, 6'2", 198, runs extremely well, a great fit in Green Bay's system. Todd McShay thinks he's going to be a first round pick. The consensus has him considerably lower. So I don't know how to deal with that. They have him, well, I guess they have him at 39. But there's a lot of corners in this class. Siobhan Revel Jr. at 44 on the Athletic composite board. This is based on, sort of the consensus model. Benjamin Morrison, the corner at 45 on the consensus board. Trey Amos could be a first round pick. Trey Amos. Tom McShay says that's what he thinks. Could be a first round pick just outside the first round. Had him in like 36 in his latest mock. But I've seen Siobhan Revel in the second. I've seen Benjamin Morrison like in borderline third. Where are these guys going to go? We don't know. So could the Packers love one of these guys? You get a pass rusher, you add a corner, and then in the third round, offensive line. There are some of these other receivers. Now, the receiver cliff really happens in the second round. So this is the problem that you're having. The receiver cliff is in the second round. There isn't really a third round. Like if you look at the consensus board, where the Packers are picking, Jalen Royals is 72nd on the consensus board. Alec Ayumanor from Stanford is 75th on the consensus board. Jalen Knoll from Iowa State is 76th. Isaiah Bond, who is not a Packers type, too skinny, is 89th. Xavier Restrepo is a slot receiver at 90. Not going to be a Packer. There's a good chance all of those guys are off the board when the Packers pick at 87. So if you take your pass rusher at the top of this draft and then don't get one in the second, a receiver in the second round, now you're struggling, I think, to find the right guy. So I'm really locked in on the second round. This is where the Packers have always found value. So whether it's Jack Besh, it would not be too early for me. Now he's on the consensus board, not even in the top 100. I think he's a second round pick. That's how good I think he is. Sorry, just kidding. Savion Williams is not in the top 100, and I think that's right. Jack Besh is 66. So he's going to be gone by the third round. I don't think 66 by consensus, 54, that's not crazy at all. That's late second, early third round grade by consensus, Jack Bash. I think Jaden Higgins is going to be gone. So this is where I think that if you pass rusher, whether it's edge or defensive tackle, the move to me is get your receiver in the second round and then figure out where you can find value in the third. Where can you find value in the third round? Because I don't think after that you have really like high impact spots unless you're looking at offensive line. And the tackles, like I said, really not there. We're looking at interior players. The Packers don't really take interior players. Like they haven't taken a guard in the top 100, a real, like I played guard my last year in college in years. They just don't do it. Now they could take someone like Tate Ratledge, center. Okay. Jonas Evanea from Arizona, Jordan Morgan's former teammate. Maybe he's there. As I mentioned, Ozzie Trapillo from Boston College. Cameron Williams from Texas. These are tackles. Maybe they're tackles, maybe they're not. I could see that in the third round. Sean Ryan in 2022 would be very much like that. You're giving yourself a little extra wiggle room. You added your pass rusher. You added your pass catcher. You signed Nate Hobbs. I think that works. Now, if we're really going to have fun, how about a receiver in the first round? What would that do to all of this? What would that look like? We'll talk about it next on Locked On Packers.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
There are two receivers in this draft class that I think make sense for the Packers, given their needs, given their roster makeup, given their build. Because while there aren't defensive tackles that I love in round 2, there are some edge guys I really like in round 2. And so if Jaden Higgins, and the other name that I'm going to keep bringing up, because I think even though there are some questions about his ability and there are questions about him being in the first round, I could see the Packers trade out if they think they want to go receiver in the first. Like, let's say they get to 23 and all the tackles that they like are gone. Walter Nolan's not on their board, let's just say. And they want to take one of these receivers. They trade out into the high 30s, mid 30s. And they take one of Higgins or Luther Burden III. Luther Burden, 5'11", 205, built very similarly to someone like Greg Jennings. And even though he played a lot in the slot, absolutely has the vertical ability, the hands, everything you want outside. Now, the release package probably needs some work, but at first, he doesn't have to be a standout X receiver to start his career. Be Christian Watson. Take the top off the defense, and then he can do a lot of the underneath gadget stuff that you want. Jaden Higgins he's the X receiver, and he's your guy now. But Luther Burden is the closer to the one-for-one Christian Watson replacement and gives you some of the stuff that Jaden Reed does. I really like his fit in Green Bay. Now you get to 54. And you could look at Braden Swinson from LSU. 6'4", 255, does everything you want. Needs some work, but flashes the pass rush moves, the power, the intensity, the violence. Really, really like Braden Swinson. Nick Scorton is another one. A little bit of a weird body type for the Packers. A shade under 6'3", but 260 almost. Really thickly built. He's kind of got a little bit of a Mike Neal vibe to him. That like squatty stand-up edge rusher kind of guy, but really good on film. I like it a lot. Like, I think that the 50s is where it makes sense for him. I think you could see Femi Oladejo in a situation like this. Now, this is also where JTT is from Ohio State. We got to see the testing. This is where Jordan Birch is, and in the consensus, I think he's more like a third-round player, but could you go Jordan Birch here? Would they be willing to go Josiah Stewart here, Princely Umamielen here? There is a ton of guys by consensus, edge rushers right in this range. Jack Sawyer, I mentioned at 54, JTT at 52, Braden Swinson at 60. I think he's better than that. Jordan Birch 63, Josiah Stewart 64. You're getting your pass rusher and your receiver. Now you're going to have to wait on your defensive tackle. But now here in the third, there's corners, Quincy Riley, Jacob Parrish, who I mentioned, Darian Porter, who I mentioned. I think Porter's going to end up going sooner, but he's 81 on the consensus board right now. Linebackers are potentials here. Let's not rule out a tight end. Let's not rule out a running back. Wouldn't that be something? Let's not rule out really anything here. A lot of round 3 receivers that I think could be on the Packers' radar here too, but they'd have to fall by consensus. I don't like to use that word, but they'd have to, like Jalen Royals is 72. He'd have to go down. Alec Ayumana from Stanford, it'd have to come down. Jalen Noel would have to come down. Doesn't mean you couldn't do it. But this is why taking that receiver to start is such an appealing option to me. I look at this draft and I go, I want to go defensive tackle or receiver in the first. That is where I have landed. Now, all that being said, one quick scenario I want to walk through with you. In Todd McShay's latest mock, and I mentioned him like 5 times now, free advertisements for Todd McShay. He had Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, at 23. It's possible. He's 6th on the consensus board. But McShay wrote, he's going to fall further than people think. He's going to go further down the board than people think. Will Johnson is a A+ fit for the Packers, a blue chip player. If he doesn't get hurt that last year at Michigan, I feel like he has a chance to be a pretty comfortable or close to no doubt top 10 player. For him to be there at 23, it's the kind of player, and maybe the only of the, non-essential players that I go, if he's there, you just have to take him. Like, okay, yeah, if Armand Membu fell, someone like that, you just go, yeah, you got to take that guy. But I think Will Johnson is an even better example of this. Then what do you do? Because now you haven't done pass rusher or receiver. And you might have to start looking, okay, 3rd round, these pass rushers. And again, that's someone like Kyle Kennard, who I really like. Jared Ivey, who I really like, but I don't know if he's going to be a Packer with the athleticism. He's got that Kingsley Enagbare in him. So maybe, you're feeling like, okay, 3rd round, that's when you can start to take that plunge. Maybe this is where Femi Oladejo comes in. If you don't get a receiver in the 1st round, I think you have to do it in the 2nd. Unless you're going to trade up in the 3rd, because I just think there is a scarcity problem here. Because after the guys we've already talked about, there's a clear drop-off. After the Ayumana or Jalen Noel group, there's a pretty, and that's 75, 76. There's a pretty clear drop-off here. You're not really going to find this. It could get like 2020 in a hurry where you're just going, we're not going to find anybody good enough to make us pull the trigger, because the guys that are in the house, you might as well just keep those guys or wait until next year. So what have we learned by doing this process? The priority at the top of the draft. If someone great falls to you, and again, I don't like using that phrasing because fall is based on narrative. It's based on consensus in the media more than anything. Now, this is the tail wagging the dog a little bit because Dane Brugler, Daniel Jeremiah, Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, they're talking to NFL people. So they are giving us a sense of where the league is on a lot of these guys. And I think that it's hard not to have that affect the way that those of us who are just doing this for fun and I do it for work technically, but I do it for you guys. I don't do it for a team, are thinking about these players. But if, a Michael Williams falls, heavy scare quotes, you may just wait on defensive tackle. If you're going to take a receiver, you may just wait on defensive tackle. Though TJ Sanders, like a Luther Burden, Jaden Higgins first, and then a TJ Sanders second round pick, I'd be into that. I would like that a lot, actually. And then I kind of don't care what happens after that, frankly. But I also like the day 2 receivers quite a bit. Whether it's Knoll, whether it's Higgins, whether it's Besh. I think Higgins is going to go sooner than people realize, but Royals, Harris. I'm not as high on Ayu Manor from Stanford, but people I trust really like him. I think the Packers are probably going to really like him. So there's options. After the second, there's not. There is at other positions in the third round. You can find a corner in the third. There are a couple nice pass rushers I think you can find on the edge in the third. It's why I don't think you have to go Ezeraku in the first. You could take a tackle and then maybe double up in the third. And it's why if you do want to go receiver or corner to start the draft, you're going to have options to find your pass rush later. It's just probably going to be on the edge. Receiver in the first, Tyleik Williams at 54, and Kyle Kennard at 87. You get you get the TJ Slayton replacement, you add a rotational pass rusher, and you add an impact receiver. Hell yeah, brother. Sounds like a good draft to me. So the Packers have some options. One thing is going to affect another. You got to have your if-thens in order. All right, back next week as we get closer. Just a couple weeks to the NFL draft. We're like a month out. Maybe 5 weeks. What is the calendar math? 27th, 3rd, 10th, 17th. Okay. A little over a month. I was jumping the gun a little bit because I'm excited. I'm excited. Follow me on all the social medias, Peter_Bukowski. Same with the podcast. Wherever you find podcasts as well, leave a rating, leave a review, subscribe over on our YouTube page, subscribe to The Leap so you can stay locked on Packers.